Hello, this is Bobby Childers with HarringtonLakeKY.com, and thank you for tuning in to Histories on Herrington, the Gwinn Island Project. This is where we will be exploring and documenting personal histories on Herrington Lake, and specifically for this project, Gwinn Island. This is the first part of my interview with Miss Lynn Tyler of Richmond. Lynn and her family had a very personal and rich connection with the owners of Gwinn Island, Wellington Wacky Cooper, and his wife Lucille Cooper, back in the 1950s and 1960s. So I will let her do all the explaining, but let's jump right in.
Hello?
Hello, Lynn.
Yes.
Hi, Lynn. It's Bobby Childers with HarringtonLake.com.
Hello, Bobby. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you this Friday afternoon?
Oh, I'm fine.
Well, good. Well, I know it's hot as Hades out there today. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. Having posted pictures about Gwinn Island, there are just so many people that think of it in a very nostalgic way. And, it turns out there are people connecting in the groups that haven't talked to each other in many decades.
Right.
And you are, honestly, you're the very first person that I am interviewing. And what I'm going to talk about and ask you about is just, the life you led around Gwinn Island and how you how you interacted with the island and the people there. I think we're just kind of curious about the history and what it was like at that time. I don't think that you don't feel like you need to or have to share anything personal or anything like that. This is purely just to kind of get a sense of what Gwinn Island was like back in the day when you were there.
Well, I guess one of the things I've been concerned with after agreeing to do the interview with you, and concern's a little bit a heavier word than I should say, but I know when I talk about Gwinn Island, it is more personal experience, of course.
Sure.
And I don't have any problem with any of that, but I guess I just anticipate giving you a whole lot more information than you're looking for. I don't know specifics, like, when did the old pool go out and the new big pool get put in?
Oh, goodness, no. Not at all.
I couldn't tell you what year that was.
Oh, no.
But I'm more than happy to talk to you about my family's history with the island.
That would be wonderful. Well, how about this? How about we just jump into it?
That sounds wonderful. Yeah, that works for me.
Super. And so just so you know, just in case you hear silence on my end, that's me making notes. So
Okay.
I just want you to know. Well, Miss Lynn, would you tell me a little bit about the first time do you remember the first time you went to Gwinn Island and, maybe the background of your first visit or why you were there or who you were with or anything related to your first visit to Gwinn Island?
Well, I really can't because I was so young.
Oh, that's good. That's understandable.
I have, in fact, I looked it up this morning. When they were tearing down the restaurant that sat at the bottom of the hill, just coincidentally, my mom and I made a nostalgic trip back there just to look at the surroundings. And as I say, coincidentally, I guess they were getting ready to tear the island down, and they had disposed of just on the side of the road there at the hill a lot of papers and for some reason, I immediately spotted some canceled checks that had my grandmother's and my father's name on them.
Really?
Yeah, so what I found in that bunch, and I didn't find many with my grandmother's, but there was a check made out to her and signed by Wacky Cooper in 1946.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Lynn, your grandpa and forgive me, I'm just going to ask questions and
sure.
So your grandparents were employed there with Wacky?
Well, my grandmother was.
Okay.
My grandfather, as far as I know, was never employed there.
Okay, so your grandmother. Okay, gotcha. And
yeah.
That's really incredible. Yeah. So just randomly you were there and you found some old paperwork that basically was about your grandmother.
Yes, and then I found other canceled checks that had my father's name on them that were dated 1952.
Wow.
And to give you some sense of timing there, I was
Sure.
born in 1950.
Thank you for sharing. I didn't want to be rude and ask you.
That's quite all right. I'm not embarrassed. I'm
No,
totally
absolutely.
feel blessed that I live this long.
Absolutely. I think it's wonderful. And honestly, I'm thankful that you have these memories to share with us, because I think this is important for the community in some respect, being able to remember the history. So do you remember when you went back? Do you remember when that was, when they tore the restaurant down?
No,
That's
I do
okay.
not, and that's the unfortunate part. I just don't have any sense of that type thing.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, that's information we can probably easily figure out. I was just curious if you remembered that. So you were really young when you started going to Gwinn Island.
I have pictures. I found a picture this morning that I think my father was probably employed there a short period of time before we actually moved back there. But part of his perks as such in his position was housing.
Yeah.
So I found a picture that showed my mom and dad and my brother and I outside of what was I don't know at that time, but I know over the years it was called the old Rock House.
Okay. May I ask what your mom and dad and your brother's name?
Yes, my dad was named Hoyt, Hoyt, but he was nicknamed Red.
Ah, we love those nicknames.
Yeah. And my mother was Rose.
Rose, that's right. I remember you mentioning her to me. And then your brother.
My brother is
Mike. And then but you all moved out there. I've heard that several times from people that, especially younger people who worked there during the summer, tended to at least 2 or 3 people I've talked with have said that they either lived over the restaurant or they somehow lived on the island when they worked there. Was that a common thing?
Well, no, I was not aware of it at that time.
Okay,
no.
gotcha.
I just knew my father's situation and
Sure.
our family's situation.
Sure. May I ask, about how old were you when you start to recall, memories around Gwinn Island?
Well, this picture that I mentioned was us outside the Rock House where we lived. In looking at it, I'm thinking that my brother and I were probably no more than 4 and 3.
Wow.
Maybe even 3 and 2. It's hard to tell.
Since you were so young, can you tell me a little bit about anything? Like, are there any memories that are really potent for you? I believe you said your mom worked in the restaurant?
Well, she actually worked in the restaurant and lived above the restaurant.
Wow.
Before she met my dad.
Oh, wow.
This was when I guess my grandmother, had worked there, and then in turn my mom came to know Lucille Cooper. And, my mom and Lucille Cooper were very, very close.
That's wonderful. That is wonderful. Do you remember Miss Lucille at all?
Oh, yeah. I mean, her youngest daughter, and I were born a week apart.
Is this Kathleen?
Yes.
Oh, wow. So I've heard about Kathleen.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Tell us a little bit about what you remember about Miss Lucille and Wacky Cooper.
Well, I guess with Lucille, the best word I would use to describe Lucille was very dignified, very, to the extent sometimes, as a kid anyway, I felt that she was not very approachable.
I see what you're saying. She was very, not quite stern, but...
Yeah, kind of, in my mind at that time, almost kind of regal, because she was so different from my mom.
Sure, that
and,
makes sense.
Part of that was probably because I knew she owned Gwinn Island, too.
I see what you're saying. That, your perception colors your memories a little bit.
Yes.
Well, that's a really great explanation, though. How about Mr. Cooper?
Mr. Cooper, he had a very, I thought, gruff outward appearance. But I didn't feel like that his personality quite matched his exterior.
That's very interesting. I've read some I've read some very minor descriptions of them, the Coopers, and many times they are described as just extremely wonderful people to work for.
Right. Well, and say my well, as I know I said in one of my comments, I guess if my dad started working for them in '52. Which would be about right based upon the picture that I saw. Then, he worked for them for 9 years.
Wow.
Because was it 52? He actually died very sudden in 1962.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Well, thank you. And in fact, he was only 33 years old.
Oh my goodness.
When he died.
Very young, very young.
Yes. But when he died, of course, and I'm jumping all over the place.
No. This is perfect. Please don't. You feel like you talk about whatever you want to talk about. This is. Okay. I'm getting exactly the type of thing that I was hoping to. So I think you're doing a wonderful job.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned again, having lived in the Rock House, and then subsequent to that, I'm not sure exactly when, although I know it was prior to 1958. We moved into the house that sat at the top of the hill. Lucille's parents were in the house right next door to us, and we were both right across the road, basically from where the Coopers lived.
Wow.
And when we moved into that house, and that's my sister was born while we were living in that house. Of course, she was born in '58, and again, my dad died in '62, so she was only 3 years or so old. But when Dad died, of course, again, that house was part of his employment, so we had to find some place to move.
Sure.
A widow and 3 children.
Right.
Not easy.
That must have been very difficult in '62. I mean, that's. Yeah.
It was very difficult, and not only that, but now Mom, she had worked again in the restaurant for Lucille Cooper, and then subsequently, with Lucille's help, Mom had gone to Lexington to go to, at that time, a secretarial school.
Sure.
And that's where she met my dad, was in Lexington. And so, again, she wasn't going to leave home. She wanted to come back home. So that's what they did, and that's when he went to work there. But anyway, Mom basically didn't have any work experience when Dad died. And Lucille and Wacky were gracious enough to, I call it gracious, although it was hard work.
Right.
Give Mom a job cleaning the cabins.
Right. Yeah, that definitely would have been a hard job, but I think I understand what you mean. Like 62 is certainly different than 2022, and it's certainly a hard, no matter what time frame, if you're a widow with children. But I imagine that time it was probably even more scary for a woman with a single mom with children. I mean, that must have been a very difficult time.
It was, and when we left the house there at the top of the hill, we actually moved in with my great-grandmother, who lived very close to the road that you turned onto off of 33 to go to the island.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then she had a small farm there, and ended up giving my mom about 3/4 of an acre of her farm that that lot faced 33, and Mom had a house built there. And I've always, not that this has anything to do with Gwinn Island, but I remember my mom was so afraid of storms, and she wanted a basement.
Oh.
So she got her basement, but then she wanted to have the basement finished. Well, the house, I think, was costing her $10,000,
Yes,
and to finish the basement, it was going to be an extra $1,000. And she was afraid she couldn't afford it, so she did not get a finished basement.
Wow. That's still, even today, that's incredible to think about.
I know.
I mean, woo. Average housing, yeah. But no.
Anyway, back to the island. You in asking me about my earliest memories, I can, in my mind, I can somewhat see the layout of the rock house that we lived in.
Uh-huh.
And again, I was 3 or 4. Now, exactly how much of that is from that time versus when that ended up becoming a cabin, just like a lot of the other cabins.
Right.
And us cleaning, and when I say us cleaning, even though Mom had the job, my brother and I, well, actually my sister, even though she didn't work, we all went with her to
right.
do whatever had to be done.
Yes, ma'am.
So, I have memories at, I guess I was 11. So I'm not sure my memories, which phase of my life those memories are from. That's a combination of the two.
That is okay, as long as they're, you know what, as long as you have the memories, it's not that important. Like, as long as you're happy about what you remember, then, that does lead me to a question. Are those, maybe it's too personal, but I just, are they happy memories thinking about Gwinn Island?
Oh, very much so. Absolutely so. Now, obviously, other than my father's untimely death, but
right.
that didn't have anything to do with the island.
No,
that was just unfortunate circumstance.
Understood.
But no, oh my gosh, I loved my time back there. I didn't love cleaning cabins, but I look back on it fondly because, as I've described to so many people, that it didn't matter. I mean, I remember there was one cabin, and believe it or not, I remember it's cabin number 10, that was one bedroom, and we would go to clean it, and the bedroom was so small, basically it was the size of the bed.
Yes, ma'am.
But that was the smallest cabin, and then there was a cabin that had, if I'm not mistaken, 5 bedrooms. And Mom got paid $1 a cabin. It didn't matter what the size.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was. And I say on a day like today, Saturday or Sunday, you had as many as 25, maybe a few more cabins to clean in one day. It was a hard job. But,
yes, ma'am.
It got her through that period of time. Until she could find something else that suited her and paid her a little bit differently.
Of course. No. Yeah, I mean, that completely makes sense. Lynn, do you remember how many cabins there were?
Oh, gosh.
You said you guys handled like 25 cleanings a day, so there obviously had to be sometimes maybe more than that. I was just curious if you don't.
Sure.
That's okay.
I'm not sure if every number was included between but I do remember there was cabin number 1, and I know there was a cabin as high as either 35, 36, 37. So if they all were subsequently numbered, then it could have been as many as between 35 and 40 cabins.
Thank you. It's funny what our memory. It's funny what we remember, isn't it?
It is.
That's the strange little nuances that we happen to put into our brain that we just don't forget.
Yeah, and I can't. Some days I get up and I can't remember what day it is.
Oh, I understand. Sometimes we don't remember breakfast, but somehow we remember. But we remember 1982 pretty well. So
I remember that. Again. I don't know which phase, but I remember at the top of the hill across from where we lived at the Rock House, there was a kind of like a picnic area. There were a couple of tables, picnic tables that sat there before you started going down that long, treacherous hill.
I've heard a lot of talk of that hill.
Oh my gosh, it's nothing today like it was when I was growing up.
Yes, ma'am. I've seen a couple of compare and contrast pictures, and in fact, it's really quite funny. Every single person that has, well, obviously, every person that has made a comment about the hill was terrified of it.
Oh yeah, it was. Now I have to say, my mom in cleaning cabins, she got so used to the hill that I've known her many days to just back up. You know,
No.
Yeah, back up the hill. And even to this day, I can remember being uncomfortable.
Oh my gosh, that's really amazing, Lynn. And I don't know. That would be, I could not imagine going backwards. Okay.
No, I guess she just got so used to it. She'd been around it so much that it just didn't bother her.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
But I think it says something that to this day, you still remember how uncomfortable you were.
Oh yeah, it was never fun in my mind anyway.
That's too funny. Lynn, so you have these wonderful positive memories. Is there anything is there like a particular memory that stands out to you that just maybe reminds you of summer, or I don't know, is there anything that really jumps out at you as being just that maybe encapsulates your time on Gwinn Island in terms of the memories or the feelings?
Well, I mean, I don't think I could pinpoint one.
That's it, yeah.
There's, the time at the pool. I mean, during the summer, we stayed in the water. That old wooden pool that set down, I don't know if you've heard about it, but it was made out of wood, and it just set down in the lake.
Well, Lynn, I wasn't going to cut you off because that was exactly my question. As we've heard, and we have pictures of the pool, and there have always been so many questions about how that pool was constructed and what was on the bottom. I understand that it was like a slatted bottom that got kind of slimy.
Oh, yeah, there was moss on the bottom that, if you tried to stand, sometimes you could try to stand on it, and it was so slippery, your feet went out from under you. But I also remember there, of course, I'm talking about the 4-foot pool. There were 3 pools. There was a 4-foot and 2 10-foots.
Okay.
And then in the 4-foot, there was at the bank side, I will say, in the corner of that 4-foot pool, there was a kiddie pool.
Yes.
But I can remember me and my brother and, whoever other kids were around playing underwater tag in that 4-foot pool, and you would go down and you would grab the slats, even though they were so mossy, and you would use use them to pull yourself along to really go much faster under the water than you could ever swim.
That is pretty great. That is pretty great. Did any fish ever get in there with you?
Oh my gosh, it's snakes. I've seen snakes.
Oh no. Okay.
I wouldn't go in there today. But I didn't
Well,
care as a kid.
no. I mean, those pictures look really nice, but if there were snakes, Bobby's not going in there.
I don't remember seeing many, but
no. I mean that makes sense. I mean, this is a pretty. I mean, Gwinn Island, even back in the day, even now, is a very, there's a beautiful habitat there. I mean, it's beautiful woodlands, and that part of that part of the lake has always been much more quiet. Not as much boat traffic, that type of thing, and it's so peaceful. So that makes sense. But thank you for answering about the pools. We've been kind of curious about that. But you said you spent most of your summer days like you were in the pool.
Oh yeah. We were just as kids before Dad died. We were just, my brother and I were just always in the pool, and then after my sister got old enough to 2.5 years old. She was down there with us. She was. None of us were ever small children. I'll put it that
Gotcha.
way.
I understand.
But my sister, she loved the water better than anything, and I can see her now having one of those, just the strip of life preserver that goes around the belly. No shoulder thing, just around the belly, and her having that thing on and running down the divider between the pools.
Oh my gosh.
To get away from us because she wanted to jump in the 10-foot pool rather than, she was restricted to the 4 foot, but that didn't matter at all.
Right. That's May I ask, was it just the children that had to wear the little life preserver belts, or did everybody have to?
Well, I don't remember it ever being required for anybody.
Oh, okay. So that was just a, gotcha.
This is just a family. My mom said,
It was a casual thing.
Yeah.
Casual safety.
And I hope my memory is not incorrect, but if I remember correctly, my dad actually just kind of put my sister in the 4-foot pool, and it was basically sink or swim.
Yeah, I understand. That's just that was how some parents were.
No way he's gonna let her sink, but from that moment on, I mean, she loved the water.
That's fantastic. Those are such great memories, Lynn. Thank you so much for sharing this. So I also heard the pool was kind of the place where the young ladies and young men would kind of hang out and, like, courting, I guess is the right word for back in the day.
I think so, because I have pictures of my mom and dad on that sun deck of the pool.
Yeah.
So yeah. Now, the age I was, it didn't really register with me that there was a whole lot of that going on.
Sure.
All I was interested in was getting in the pool and swimming.
Sure. Well, I feel like it was probably a whole lot more wholesome back in the day, maybe. Or maybe that's just a stereotype in my mind as well. But
No, I think it was. I mean, I just...
maybe like a scene from Happy Days, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go. Which brings up another part of there was the dock that ran, several feet in total, and one section of the dock was what was, the rec room.
Okay. Well, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it had a little snack bar in it.
Nice. What was it? May I ask, what were the snacks back then? Do you remember? Like I know myself growing up around water or a pool or wherever, you always had, whatever your typical snacks are. Was it different back in the 50s and 60s for yourself?
Well, I can remember hot dogs.
Oh, yes. There we go.
And I remember snow cones.
All right. Excellent.
Candy bars, of course.
What was your do you remember what your favorite flavor snow cone was?
Oh, cherry.
Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate that. That is some good feedback. There's nothing like the red lips and red tongue the rest of the day.
That's right. Well, see, my mom worked the snack bar.
Oh, so
at the same time she was cleaning cabins. So
I was about to say that. It sounds like you were a very busy family, and that your mom worked very, very hard to take.
She did, harder than, of course, I realized at the time, because a lot of it, especially the rec room, was fun for me.
Sure, I think that's always 20/20 for us as we get older, right?
Yes, absolutely.
We realize things we didn't know then.
But
so
the rec room had a jukebox, and it had multiple pinball machines. And I do remember there being kids older than me in there, dancing and whatever with the jukebox.
Yeah, I have heard some stories about the jukebox, so that's really good. Is there may I ask, and again, memories come and go, but was there a song that you particularly remember that goes with Gwinn Island for you in that rec room or with that jukebox?
Well,
I know that's
there is one song from that period that sticks in my mind. But I'm not sure it was the rec room, or I'm not sure why, but it was Sherry.
Okay, that's great. No, but still, that what though, it doesn't. It's just all about the memory and what makes you think of that. And I think that's pretty amazing. Well, thank you for joining us today on that part 1 of Lynn Tyler. We are going to continue on with a part 2 coming very soon, so keep your eyes peeled, subscribe for updates, and visit us at HerringtonLakeKY.com. Thanks for tuning in.